and John loved Colorado. It changed his life. He had the ability to put into words, I think, things that we all felt.
Sometimes I wonder, I hope that he wasn't scared, that it all happened pretty quickly for him.
Not a lot of artists can blend pop, folk, and country music with unmatched lyricism. And yet, American singer and songwriter John Denver managed to do all that with ease and more. As one of the most popular acoustic singers during the 1970s, John Denver popularized many hits like Take Me Home, Country Roads, Leaving on a Jet Plane, and Annie's Song, with the last one inspired by his then-wife at the time, Annie Denver. Now at 78, Annie Denver confirmed the rumors about John Denver, finally putting to rest all the rumors surrounding the late country singer. It's no secret that many people wouldn't know who Annie Denver is if it weren't for her famous ex-husband. A former school commissioner and TV personality, she's quite an impressive individual, which is why it's no surprise that the late country singer was smitten with her. She was born on September 6, 1946, as Annie Martell to Jim and Norma Martell in Minnesota, USA. She has 3 other siblings, namely Linda, Terry, and Ben, and they were raised in the Christian faith. Throughout her life, she attended the local schools in Minnesota. And once she graduated from high school, she enrolled at Gustavus Adolphus College in St. Peter, where she met the legendary country singer. At the time, Denver was part of the musical group called the Chad Mitchell Trio when the would-be lovers met back in 1966. Martell was a sophomore then, and Denver was instantly drawn to her and finally met up again a few months after their initial meeting. Martell revealed more details about their first meeting during a 2022 episode of the Mobituaries with M.O. podcast. She shared how her future husband was playing with the Mitchell Trio, and right after that, he played the guitar with a group of people who were putting on a silly little musical. Martell said she was the girl who carried the signs across the stage, Act 1 and Act 2. She even revealed that her ex-husband still remembers what she wore that day, which was a pair of blue jeans and a flannel shirt with penny loafers. The two hit it off and exchanged letters, and before they realized it, both were already walking down the aisle and tied the knot on June 9, 1967. It was a pretty quick dating phase that only lasted 9 months until the couple announced their engagement and married right after. Annie's Song is one of the more popular songs of John Denver, which introduced Annie Martell, now Mrs. Denver, to the public. What makes the song so noteworthy is that it combines all of the things John Denver loved at the time: his passion for music, love for his wife, and most especially the environment. Just recently, Annie Denver finally confirmed what we've all been meaning to know about John Denver in this song. Apparently, the now 78-year-old widow still cries whenever she hears this song. Besides this song, Annie Denver also shared that another of her favorites is the song Perhaps Love, which her ex-husband did with Placido Domingo. Was the song born out of an intimate moment shared between the two? Contrary to popular belief, Annie's Song came to fruition after John Denver experienced a certain life-changing event. You see, 1971 was one of the most crucial years in the country folk singer's career because during this time he released Take Me Home, Country Roads. But a few other singles also helped define his career, including Annie's Song. What happened then was that the couple went on a camping trip in Aspen, Colorado, along with some friends. Being the nature lover that he was, it didn't take long for Denver to fall in love with the place, which also inspired one of his other hits, Rocky Mountain High. Eventually, Denver and his wife moved to the place where they built a home and raised their family. However, one fine day in 1973, John Denver came rushing home, inspired by their surroundings. According to Annie Denver, her husband wrote it after one of their many quarrels, wherein they set their differences aside to make peace. In a good mood, John Denver left to go skiing, and as he sat on the Ajax chair on Aspen Mountain, the song just came to him. As soon as he got home, he wrote it down. And not 10 minutes later, it was done. Initially, it was a love song, and it was given to me through him. And yet for him it became a bit like a prayer, Annie Denver said. It's pleasing to know that there's lasting proof of the love shared between Annie and John Denver through this song. The couple weren't blessed to have children biologically, but they adopted a son and a daughter who they both loved wholeheartedly, namely Zachary John and Anna Kate. Unfortunately, the couple's love did not last long, and in 1982, the Denvers filed for divorce, thus ending their 15 years of marriage. There are two sides to each story, and we'll explore each party's reason that drove them apart. For the country singer, he believes that his success and commitment to his work deeply affected his relationship with his wife. Even going so far as to say that in the last few years that they were together, the two seemed to have started drifting away from one another. Being a popular singer at his prime also required John Denver to spend many days on the road performing gigs and shows, which also played a part in his divorce. I think my success and my commitment to the work that I do certainly had an effect on Annie's and my relationship, Denver shared in a 1983 appearance on The Russell Hardy Show. He continued, I think over the last 4, 5 or 6 years, we started drifting away from one another. And part of it had to do with the amount of time that we spent not together and the things that I got locked into and not being together, and then an inflexibility when we got back together to sort of integrate the other's life into our own. Compared to the singer, his wife cites that the reason for their breakup was because they were too young and immature to deal with John Denver's sudden thrust into stardom. She found his celebrity status and everything that came with it threatening to the point that she no longer knew who she was and how she didn't have an identity. Despite their differences, the couple still split on good terms, with her maintaining her single status to this day while John Denver remarried a second time. Did you know? There have been rumors circulating that Annie Martell has already died, but there's no truth to it since she's still living in her Colorado home with her children and grandchildren. Although they were a short-lived couple, it's not often we get to see an amicable separation between two parties, with Annie Martell remaining good-natured to her ex-husband even after the split. This is quite surprising, especially if you know the scandals and controversies that surrounded her ex-husband, most especially his death, which we'll get to later. Since we've already talked about Annie Martell Denver, it's only right that we also talk about her ex-husband, John Denver. Born on December 31, 1943, as Henry John Duchendorf Jr. in Roswell, New Mexico, he came to be known as the legendary country icon John Denver. His parents were Emma Louise and Captain Henry John Dutch Duchendorf Sr. His father was a highly decorated pilot with impressive records. Growing up, Denver recalled his father as a stern man who was not openly affectionate to his children, and because of the patriarch's line of work, they often moved around a lot. Denver was an introverted child, and their family moving around a lot didn't help. For one, he had a hard time making friends and assimilating to their new environment every time. The first time they lived the longest in a certain area was when his father was stationed in Tucson, Arizona, where the family lived from 1951 to 1959. When he was 11, his grandmother gifted him an acoustic guitar, which he learned to play on his own. He continued playing, and by the time he was in college, he was considered decent enough to play in local gigs and clubs. At the time, he was still using his real name until the founder of the New Christy Minstrels, Randy Sparks, suggested he change to a different name, one that's less of a mouthful to say. Now going by the name of John Denver, he continued playing even as he attended Texas Tech University in Lubbock while studying architecture. At the time, Denver not only played the guitar, but also sang in a folk music group until he dropped out of school in 1963 and moved to Los Angeles to pursue music full-time. Denver was playing at folk clubs then, and it took 2 more years before he replaced Chad Mitchell in the Chad Mitchell Trio, where they ultimately changed the name to Denver, Boise, and Johnson for all 3 members, John Denver, David Boise, and Michael Johnson. Fast forward to a few more years, Denver left the band and chose to pursue a solo career. He released his first album titled Rhymes and Reasons under RCA Records in 1969. Before this, he self-produced a recording of some of his songs, and one of these included Babe I Hate to Go, which caught the attention of a producer, Milt Oken. It was then reworked, which we now know today as Leaving on a Jet Plane. By this time, Oken had also become Denver's producer along with the folk group Peter, Paul and Mary, who popularized the song and even topped the Billboard Hot 100. Denver's own version also climbed to number 1 on the U.S. Cashbox chart in December 1969. What many people don't know about John Denver is that he did most of the promotions by himself, embarking on a Midwest tour, giving out free concerts, and even offering to play for free at local venues. He also went to radio stations that humored him, knowing he was the composer behind Leaving on a Jet Plane. He was even allowed to play a song or two during airtime. All of these contributed to the country singer having a solid fan base which continued to support him even into his later years. Compared to his first album, John Denver's next album, Poems, Prayers, and Promises, which was released in 1971, was a commercial success. The album broke through the charts, especially Take Me Home, Country Roads. We've mentioned how Denver helped establish himself with the locals, but the success of this album is also due to the efforts of his new manager, Jerry Weintraub, who helped blast his music through a radio airplay campaign, thus broadening his reach. John Denver reached new heights, securing his popularity in the early 70s with hit songs Rocky Mountain High, Sunshine on My Shoulders, Thank God I'm a Country Boy, and Annie's Song, to name a few. Weintraub also made sure he had his airtime on the local TV, appearing in as many guest shows as he could until he started hosting some eventually. Rocky Mountain Christmas, his seasonal special, was even watched by over 60 million and was hailed as the ABC network's highest-rated show at the time. The demand for the singer was so high that soon enough he had his own BBC series titled The John Denver Show. Of course, we can't leave out that the singer also won many prestigious awards, including multiple Grammy Awards and American Music Awards. As John Denver's popularity waned in the late 70s, the singer zeroed in on doing more humanitarian efforts and on nature conservation projects. He took part in fundraising projects by performing for the Aspen Camp School for the Deaf and even donated to the Aspen Valley Hospital's $1.7 million capital campaign. He also has the 450-acre Windstar Land Conservancy in Aspen, Colorado, which not only served as his home, but also as a sanctuary for wildlife and a center for environmental education. Of course, we already know that Denver married Annie Martell and divorced her after 15 years. What we didn't mention then was that there was a bit of an extreme occurrence during the division of their assets. Denver confessed then that he was so angry that to drive the point of their split, he tried to cut their marital bed in half with a chainsaw. However, insiders reveal that he only did it to get back at Martell after she cut down a few of the family trees they have in Aspen. It took a few more years before Denver met his next wife, the Australian actress Cassandra Delaney, in 1985. He met her in Sydney and after a few short years of courtship, they tied the knot in 1988. The following year, Delaney gave birth to a daughter named Jessie Bell in May and settled in Denver's Aspen home. But like his marriage to Annie Martell, Denver and Delaney also split and their time together was much shorter. They called it quits in 1991 with the actress even calling her ex-husband a vindictive bully. No one really knows for sure, but many believe that Denver's divorce from his second wife was a catalyst for many of his struggles in later years. He was charged with drunk driving for the first time in 1992. And the following year, he pleaded guilty to a drunk driving charge when he crashed his Porsche into a tree, thus placing him on probation. After he was convicted of drunk driving, the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, ordered him to abstain from alcohol if he wanted to continue flying planes. But unfortunately, he didn't pull through. The following year, Denver was medically disqualified from operating an aircraft. Beneath his soft-natured image, John Denver faced a lot of hardships, which led to him leaning on alcohol and drug use for comfort. He suffered bouts of depression and was actually insecure despite his public persona. He also openly admitted that he used LSD and marijuana when he wrote Rocky Mountain High and often faced backlash for being a bad drunk and his hypocrisy. He may not be a decorated pilot like his father, but John Denver knew more than a thing or two about flying. He even had a license for it. John Denver enjoyed flying a lot and even took part in a VH1 promotional contest. So, how is it that a man like him met a tragic end? Was there some kind of sabotage in his aircraft? Keep listening to find out. Before we get to the bottom of this, it's important to understand the background and nature of aircraft first. Like all things, an aircraft is built with sturdiness and safety in mind. But unlike automobiles, you can't exactly pull over when you catch fire, right? Aircraft would require more than a couple of minutes to pull over, and by then, a simple wisp of gray smoke from the engine could rapidly evolve into fire. For this situation, an aircraft has a fuel shutoff valve in the cockpit, allowing the fire to dissipate and prevent its spread so they can find a field to safely land their plane. John Denver was piloting a Rutan Long-EZ, which is a light home-built aircraft, when it crashed into Monterey Bay near the Pacific Grove in California, which led to his death on October 12, 1997. He was 53. There were many conspiracies and theories about the cause of the crash. One of the more popular ones is the wrong placement of the fuel selection valve, placing it behind the pilot's left shoulder. It was bad ergonomics because it would require the pilot to release all controls to shut the valve off. On top of this, there's also his fuel. Some gauges indicated whether he was running low on fuel, but because those weren't linear and had no markings, it was hard to tell if he barely had any fuel left. In conclusion, his aircraft was truly poorly built, which led to the country singer plunging to his death into the ocean. Still, there were other safety precautions that the country singer failed to check and enforce, with the plane's interface only playing a factor in the overall crash. Because of this, John Denver paid the ultimate price. But despite his grim end, he is still celebrated and best remembered today for his contribution to music and humanitarian efforts that inspired and changed lives. This year alone, his song, Country Roads Take Me Home, debuted on the Billboard chart after it was featured in a commercial that aired during the Super Bowl. Moreover, a tribute to the country singer is about to hit the App Theater on July 10th, which only proves his songs remain relevant and timeless to this day.